Okay. Trickle in, trickle in. I know it's been precisely 8 seconds, so that would be tough. But we are just checking real quick to see if we went live.
And survey is saying we are still updating everything. But while we are updating, I just want to give a special shout out to all the schools that have not closed down, aka Texas Tech. Thanks, Sarah. I really thought you'd be home by now if you're watching this. I thought you were going to get sent home after like a week. She already knows like 5 people that got infected by COVID at Tech, and they still have not closed down the school. Obviously, 5 is not enough. But Bama had 500 people infected by COVID. They sent everyone to their dorms for 2 weeks. So we'll see what's going on as time goes by. How many more schools close, like North Carolina? I know they sent all their students home. I know Notre Dame sent some students home. So we will see as time goes on. Matt is still opening up everything. Hopefully we are live. If we are not live, then we are at least recording so we can post this later. So we're going to talk about a couple things today. We're going to talk about, obviously, Kenosha. We're going to talk about Portland. We're going to talk about the NBA. Sad day to be a Mavs fan. I don't want to hear it before he talks about the Celtics. It's a sad day to be a Mavs fan. But yes, we're going to talk about some important stuff. Me and Matt figured since it's been a month, we'll talk a little bit about what's been going on in our lives, why I haven't been doing this as much as weekly as we promised, but we have been very, very busy. For starters, I'll go first while he's still looking up everything. I just got a new Jeep, so I took that Jeep out to Caprock Canyon, put some dirt on it, took it off-road, and got some four-wheel driving. A lot of fun. Got a new job, so that's awesome, because as most of you know, it's hard out there to get a job right now. Oh, hell, Reckham joined the stream, so it looks like we're live on Omelet right now. But at least we're live on something.
We're live on YouTube. We're live on Omelet.
Okay.
I just realized, of course, we messed up our title on Omelet, but screw it.
Yeah.
This is not episode 16.
We'll get through it.
Or it is. Who knows? Who knows at this point? We're 16 or 17. But yeah, it's been about a month. Man, we've just been busy. We've been busy. So, Alec's not the only one, of course. Anybody who's been looking for work or having work troubles, I've had at least like 4 or 5 friends who've been through multiple processes, actually been told that they would have liked to hire them when they successfully thought they were hired, and then they didn't get hired. So that's been pretty tough for people.
Yes.
Thankfully, the only struggles I ever had was a 1-week furlough, but I know that I'm pretty fortunate on that because there was no risk on that. It was just to save labor overhead for a pretty big company. But with that, things are kind of back in, some changes for us, but we're back on it. And it just so happens that the last month was probably the craziest month of 2020 as a whole.
Yes.
So not only were we trying to get things together in terms of the show, but life has just been crazy. With that, I think we have like a more focused effort coming back to things.
Of course.
When everything's right at home and everything's cool with employment and you're comfortable and you have the freedom mentally to work, we can get where we want. And with that, let's hop into it. The first couple of things we were going to talk about is really are just some of the hottest topics right now, especially over the last few weeks and the weekend. The biggest thing is definitely going to be Portland and Kenosha. With that, you have Kyle Rittenhouse. I just caught myself because I was about to say like the first sentence of what I wrote in that article that I wrote on that little summary of the Kyle Rittenhouse, and it's basically something about how if you don't know about this conversation and what happened, you live under a rock. No worries if you are. Just go. I'll either post some links to that article or you can literally type in the name. I'm pretty sure Kyle's going to work at this point.
Yeah, just typing in K, I figure on Google will bring in Kyle Rittenhouse within the top 5.
I was developing that joke, and I'm pretty sure it was by the time you hit K. So, but awful situation. I think in terms of hitting that in the best way, let's start with Portland. I was saying you probably are more informed with Portland as a whole. I'm loosely informed.
Yeah.
I spent probably most of my last week paying attention to the Kenosha conversation just because it's interesting. The last week especially has gotten really crazy.
Yeah, so the thing with Portland is multiple times the president, whether you like him, don't like him, that's not the argument right now. The argument is, do you agree that people should be sent in to protect the people that are just trying to live life. They're just trying to have a normal day, go to work, go out to eat, not be yelled at, not be thrown bottles at, not have rocks, paintballs, paint canisters thrown at you for living your normal life in Portland. Because Antifa is literally going berserk. If you don't know about it, just type in Portland riots. It's pretty gross and disgusting to see some of the stuff that's going on out there. So a good example of this was how this previous weekend, again, doesn't matter your views on the president. If this happened to a Joe Biden rally and Joe Biden's, they wouldn't have trucks as a Joe Biden fan like they did for the Trump rally. It'd probably be a bunch of like Priuses, like a like a Biden Prius rally. But you know, like if you watch the videos, there's a Trump truck rally that's driving around the city, and I think it was like an hour before they left, the route was released so that if you didn't make it to the starting organizer event, you could at least pull up to the side of the street, get in at the end of the train. Well, Antifa found that, and they got prepared within that hour. So as the trucks came across a certain route in Portland, rocks were thrown off the top of highways. If a rock goes through your windshield, a big enough rock, it can literally kill you because you're going 70 miles an hour one way, the rock's in free fall, hits you through your windshield, you're dead. So they were throwing rocks off the freeway, they were paintballing cars, throwing glass balls at cars, slashing trucks' tires when they got to a red light. It was a very bad scene, and because of that, a Trump supporter was actually shot and killed and murdered. And they actually released the footage today, so I think it was within like a minute, there's a medic already running towards this guy. And when the medic gets to him, he immediately starts doing his stuff. Or I think it was a woman, actually. So the female medic puts her stuff down, she puts her medical bag down. Antifa members run up and kick her medical bag away from her because they don't want her to help him. As he's dying in the street, the same people that shot him and are like watched it happen, they start cheering and dancing in circles saying, "We got a Trumper, we got a Trumper." If that happened, if Trump supporters went out of their way to dance and be overzealous and joyous about shooting a Biden supporter, it would be nonstop media coverage for weeks. I mean, literally leading up into the election, you would hear about how happy a Trump supporter is to kill somebody that supports Biden. So it's like everything going on in Portland right now is an absolute shit show. I agree, and it's not because, like I said, it's not like the president, don't like the president. I agree something needs to be done. We need to send federal troops in to just get everybody back to safety. People should not be experiencing this just living there. It's a madhouse out there. So that's just my little 2 cents on Portland. I'm sure Matt will have something to interject with now.
I mean, there's like 5 million ways you could go. I was thinking, do we want to show that video?
Which one? The medic video?
There's a video from yesterday or the day before of that Trump supporter getting shot.
Oh yeah, we can share that video. It's
It's
not graphic. I'll let you guys know that now. It's not graphic. It's from a distance that you're not going to be able to see blood and gore. So at least that's a little bit better than some of the other videos we've seen.
Yeah, I was really only asking to be courteous because there are definitely videos we've seen that we would not want to show in here because there's some stuff, and I mean even at the point of God, I mean, shit. I was gonna pick one of the 5 videos that it could have been over the last 4 months. But, we don't really want to show the majority of those because they're just
tons of videos,
brute violence.
Tons of videos of violence. We're in a terrible time in this country.
We're gonna rewind real quick because we know that audio and everything surely wasn't good. All right, so basically this is from a distance across the street. It'll be right around here. You're generally gonna hear person number 1 say, "We've got a Trumper right here." Person number 2, who ends up pulling the trigger on that person, says, "Right here," and then basically just pulls trigger.
Yeah.
What you see there is... What you see here is essentially this guy walks up to him. The victim was there with a friend. They're part of I can't remember this group. There's some political group.
I think it was Patriot something.
Yeah, I can't think of the name right now. essentially, what you see isn't gun smoke. It's that guy pepper spraying the shooter back right as he pulls trigger on him. I don't know. I don't really want to watch much else because it makes me queasy. But I was about to cuss, but one of my New Year's resolutions as of August is to not cuss so much because, hey, we're going to work towards making this thing more of a reality and being sponsorable. But I was going to say that's just disgusting. And the craziest thing about it is the same thing as the Kenosha thing, which I know is speaking a little out of turn because we're about to hit that. But the media right now is just like absurd. It's a complete joke how in love they are with these leftists and like protesters and rioters. They're slobbering over like how good of people these people are. Yeah, and it's ridiculous. Which I suppose that takes us directly into the Kenosha stuff. So the Kenosha stuff, the reason that's the biggest deal right now, that's a big deal, is because after the essentially, I suppose we need to step back. There's another shooting with Jacob Blake. And regardless of what we think about that situation, he shouldn't have been fighting the cops. He shouldn't have been doing all of these things that led to why the cops were scared for him running around his car, reaching in to get a weapon. But the fact of the matter is we still don't think he's supposed to get shot 7 times. Yep. Now, there's a bunch of bunch of stuff that you can read from us both talking about it this week, I'm sure. From me, there's at least one article, which is like pretty decent length, just talking about everything, talking about how the biggest BS of the whole thing is that the media is running away with this being a racist thing. And I suppose the biggest point I made in that article was that it's not a racial thing. I understand the qualms with, you have a black guy who wasn't a mass shooter, and then, he's getting manhandled by cops, and then you have all these white serial killers, whatever it is, and they end up not getting fucked with by cops. The fact of that matter is, the easiest way to say it is a lot of white people understand that you don't mess with cops. If you realize, what Kyle was doing, and Kyle's situation is a bit different. We'll hop into it because it's really hairy. But in terms of what I think happens in the Dylan Roof scenarios, all these scenarios where kids are walking out of schools and they're essentially they're playing patty cake with the cops. Yeah. I authentically think the difference in these situations is that those white people are acting terrified of cops and they're complying to the utmost degree, as opposed to the Jacob Blakes, and this could be because of institutionalized racism over centuries and centuries, right? Or however long, a century and a half. I understand that can develop what that response is from the black community, minority community. Yeah. It's fear. I understand that. But the fact of the matter, on a just 1-to-1 basis, it's that Jacob. It's that generally these white guys are acting like sissies. They're not running around the car trying to fight the cops specifically. They're not reaching into cars for weapons. And that doesn't apply to George Floyd. People want to run as far as they can with the whole painting people's character in a bad light. But the thing is, it's just a different situation. As every situation is. And the media right now, and so many people are trying to take these, as always, you're taking your political aisle. But things aren't just that easy, I suppose is what I'm saying. It's simply not that easy. The Jacob Blake scenario, not even talking about his rap sheet. All that shit. Not talking about the bad person he is. Not talking about whatever it is. The fact of the matter is, it was basically hand-to-hand combat at that point, and he was running to get a weapon that he announced he had. It's not the same as the George Floyd scenario. I still don't think he should get shot 7 times.
After getting tased, after putting another cop in a chokehold, the taser failed, then he got up and started walking to his car, ignoring instructions. They found a knife in his dash. Mm-hmm. But we still don't agree he should have been shot 7 times.
Right.
But the question is that we asked each other before this is, when you had all of that experience in the previous 2 minutes, we're not police officers, Matt's not a police officer, how many times in your adrenaline rush, you just watched your buddy get put in a headlock, this guy's fighting cops, he just took a taser, you see, but the video doesn't show it, you see it, there's a knife right there, and you're already in adrenaline push. How many times will you pull the trigger? And it's hard, because we don't know. That's true. 7 times is clearly a lot. We all sit here and say, why the fuck? He's trying to not cuss. I shouldn't have said that, but
We're gonna
why
work
are you
it.
trying to not? Why are you
Generally.
shooting? Why are you shooting him 7 times? You know, like that's really what it comes down to. But we also talked about before this is why can't the media get behind something? And you know they did. I'm gonna put this. I'm gonna precursor this next statement. They did for a little while. The NBA players got behind it for a little while, and then they just went to the next big thing. Breonna Taylor is the only life that I can think of that's happened as of recent that everyone looks at and agrees, what the happened?
Yeah.
The police broke into the wrong home, murdered a woman, and then blamed her husband.
It's just interesting
When
what
they
the
broke
media
in,
is willing
it's
willing to put on the cycle because
It's
you know,
frustrating.
that's something that I think cut and dry. Most people like. I mean,
I don't know
if you don't
anyone that
agree on that.
disagrees.
Yeah, I haven't met
anyone.
one person. Doesn't matter really what affiliation they were.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. And making this more wholesome, bringing us back on track. I'm not going to stick on the Jacob Blake thing too long. Because it was just a function to get to the Kenosha deal, but with that though, it's just there's this weird willingness right now, and it's generally by it happens both sides, of course, as everything does. But a lot of the media is owned by liberals, but by the left movement, whatever you want to call it, and
Even people at Fox.
it's
I mean,
all
it's not
about
just-
dressing up these people as individuals, and to take that into like where I left the point about why white killers aren't getting like shot up by the cops and they're getting taken in and they're seeing life, they're making it to a jury, wasn't at all to make that racial point. It's to move on to breaking down Kenosha and what actually happened there. Now you can go read a bunch about this on our social medias. You can read my article. You can read a few Facebook posts where I'm breaking down how I don't understand why the police are putting themselves in that risk in a Jacob Blake situation. Why don't you give some space? You have a gun. If you know he has a knife and he doesn't have a firearm, even if you think he might, why don't you work from a distance and you kind of have that buffer of time and you're going to be the one who's ready? Why are you running
there's
up on
kids in
him?
the
Why are you
backseat.
putting yourself so close that you're scared he's going to stab you and then you know that you're just going to pull trigger until it's over with?
Yeah.
Moving forward, the Kenosha deal and Kyle Rittenhouse is pretty fucking crazy. Kyle, 17-year-old kid. He's basically from a town 30 minutes away. It's not as crazy as that seems because, as the bigger towns, when you get into rural areas, people drive. I know
we're
people in the
30 minutes
suburbs.
from Dallas, but
Yeah.
we say we're from Dallas.
I don't know.
Like-
People just forget. Like, just think. All right. But this kid Kyle, he did random jobs and stuff, like lifeguard. He, I don't know, did some other medic stuff. But essentially, what happened was in wake of the Jacob Blake stuff, riots were forming, protests were forming, and basically people were getting called in by smaller business owners in Kenosha, specifically some auto dealerships. Specifically for Kyle, one auto dealership that was calling around asking people to come and basically be an armed militia for them. They had been torn to the ground, blah, 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 as many small businesses and more have been. And so basically what happens is this kid, Kyle Rittenhouse, he's 17-year-old. The big headlines you're going to be catching right now are that he shouldn't have had a weapon. There's going to be a lot of gray area there in terms of what actually happens in Wisconsin, from what I understand and from what his training was. But the fact of the matter so far is that he was an underage kid. He was there, and he ended up killing 2 people and shooting a third. Now, the media has gone absolutely ballistic in the coverage of this, and they've done it on the premise of it being racist. They've really relied on that connection. I tried to paint for you guys of racist that Jacob Blake gets shot and racist that Kyle doesn't. It's an interesting situation, and it's not even close to that simple. And the fact of the matter is, I don't think it's racial at all. The fact of the matter, too, is that the 2 people he killed were white, and the third was white. And they were also, basically...
Registered sex offender.
Well, so one was a registered sex offender, and that's because he was a pedophile. It was in the state of Arizona, and he was basically sentenced to, 10 or 11 years at the age of 18, which is crazy. Basically, for a juvenile to get that sentence on a sex crime is supposed to be pretty fucking awful. Second dude, the guy with the skateboard, he was a sexual assaultant too, and a batterer, domestic abuser, not sexual, but with that, pretty gray, he probably sexually abused too. And then the third guy, the guy who didn't die, the one who
Got shot in the arm.
he got shot in the arm. that guy was a communist, and he was basically like, he had gun and alcohol charges, which, not to talk shit on alcohol charges. I'm not a big believer in talking shit on charges that are generally a slap on the wrist for most people. Alcohol charges for most people equates to being a dumbass in college. That's what it meant for me. But like when you're talking about like that's strictly just alcohol ticket, right? But when you're talking about it, for him, this dude's name Gage something. Maybe it was just an alcohol ticket, but the fact of the matter is he also had gun charges, and he is a communist. So
he had a gun with him before.
The media was really painting these guys out to be absolute darlings, and everybody since has been painting out Kyle Rittenhouse to be a kind of psycho nationalist killer. That was out there, on the hunt. But that's not true at all. And if you guys are willing to, you need to go watch there's a New York Times article, Twitter thread, and I think some videos tracking everything they can of that night that has video on him. And what happened was he essentially got chased. And at some point... God, dude, the videos are crazy because there are far more guns going off than just Kyle's, and there's a lot of misdirection happening. But from what I can tell, there were shots coming from the protesters that were chasing him first. Essentially, he was guarding that first auto dealership. Something happened where he left, and he was trying to come back and defend that one with the group of militiamen he was with in the first place. And for whatever reason, the cops told him he couldn't come back there, and he was turned away, which was a little strange because he was there earlier in the night, and he was talking with the militia members and the cops. And the cops, there are videos of the cops handing them out waters, telling them they appreciate them for helping the small business owners and working with cops simultaneously, blah, blah, blah.
And he was cleaning graffiti. He had a medical bag.
Earlier in the day. Well, that's
saying,
crazy.
I'm here to help people.
So he actually was there because he was, he was interviewed by this dude who works for the Daily Caller. He's a video guy on the ground. Can't think of his name right now, but basically he was interviewed by him too. And that Daily Caller reporter was right behind the entire situation in that first
shooting.
In the first shooting, which happens, I was going to say, in the second auto dealership parking lot. That's where that first video is, where he's running away, and you hear him saying, I think I just killed somebody, or I just killed somebody.
What happened? So the guy that's chasing him, he's literally running at him. This is the pedophile, bald guy.
He threw a Molotov at him,
at his head,
in pursuit.
Yes,
and then chased him and pinned him basically in like
kind of like compact area.
The back of this like parking lot towards these buildings where, I mean, it's pretty crazy because every single time, Kyle didn't pull the trigger until people were right on top of it.
Well, yeah, so you got to think, this guy, he's running at him on video.
It wasn't just this guy. People keep covering the scenarios and the different shootings in this whole thing. There's 3 shootings, really. There's 4. One guy was lucky to not get shot at all, I believe.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure how truthful that is. I'll have to follow that up. That was the first one. And the thing about that is it wasn't just, I'm blanking on his name, the big, bald, like, scary-ass looking dude. It wasn't just him. It was an entire, like, it was like a good-sized, I don't know.
There's multiple
5
people
to 10 people. Yeah. And so, and someone else was shooting a pistol. And that happens momentarily right before that dude, I'll look up his damn name, is running at Kyle. And Kyle ends up shooting him. Joseph Rosenbaum. He ends up shooting him in the head.
And he's running at him, and he's yelling, "Shoot me inward."
Yeah, which is on video of him, that one guy saying it earlier before anything kicks off, earlier in the day on news things. Crazy shit. This guy was like a piece of shit.
He alone is a racist. If you're gonna so this is played for both sides. If you are on the left and you say nobody except for black people should use the N-word, and really nobody should use that word at all because it's derogatory. Well, this guy is on your side, and you're not calling him out for being a racist, and he's also a pedophile, and this guy's chasing him, throwing shit at this teenager's head, and we're going to say, oh, well, he's not in the right to defend himself. That guy is charging him.
Threw a Molotov cocktail at him.
Charging him, and he's 17. This guy's, like, yelling and screaming at him.
The guy's grabbing his long gun. It doesn't really matter what the reason is, but at some point when someone's grabbing your gun and you have an entire mob on you, what do you think they're trying to do with that gun?
Yeah. And then, like, we're moving on to the second one, and this is the one that I hope this guy's watching on Facebook, because I got into quite a funny argument with someone who was defending, or not defending, but attacking Kyle for the second one, and also defending Portland riots and saying that they are peaceful. And you can literally watch videos on how they're not peaceful. But the second one where he gets chased and he gets hit in the head with a skateboard, which is assault with a deadly weapon, to any lawyer in any court, whether you shoot him or not, when you get hit with a skateboard, that's considered a deadly weapon to the head. So he gets hit with that. Another guy runs up and kicks him. He immediately turns and shoots because in the moment, if you have someone hitting your head with a skateboard, if you've never touched a skateboard, they're not
Here's
jello.
the picture for anybody
Look
who
at
hasn't
that.
seen.
I mean, that is clearly assault
that's
with a
the
deadly
long
weapon.
gun laying on the floor. This is before he shoots this dude.
And then the next guy literally kicks him in the head, so he turns and shoots him too because you're defending yourself. And any lawyer that watches this video is going to say that. He's running for his life. In the crowd, you hear, get him, take his gun, kill him. You hear that on video, so when he falls and he immediately gets jumped, you're going to shoot. You're defending yourself.
So a lot of the bullshit right there is the media was spinning that those protesters and rioters were chasing Kyle because that first shooting happened first unprovoked. That is not true at all.
No.
Now, I've thought, okay, there's always so much fucking confusion back and forth. That's the entire media disarray. That's how they confuse everybody, right? Was there something that happened before that? No, not from what I can tell. Not from what the New York Times says. Thank God. Like, thank God there's still like these outlets. That's why it always ties into my conversation about you can't just take things at face value because I've seen good work come out of like everywhere.
Yeah.
You really do have to like whittle down and find your individually trusted journalists and stuff like that. And yeah, there are the bigger movements going on with like the CNNs and the Fox News and stuff like that, but still good, more impartial stuff comes out of those places.
Yeah.
With that, I mean, kudos to the New York Times and anybody else who's covered this with any truth. So as we move to that third person Alec was talking about, Gage, this is interesting because
This is literally
so much of this was
Christmas for a lawyer.
bullshit. So much of this was bullshit in terms of initial coverage. People kept saying he didn't have a gun, blah, blah, blah. And then these pictures came out, hence the circling. Gotta love that. That's something that he shouldn't have, according to the charges he has on his rap sheet. And then this is like the kicker. And this came out 2 days ago. It's basically one of Gage's stupid little friends who apparently doesn't know how law works. Part of my reasoning for why Kyle was in his right to shoot this guy said Gage would have killed Rittenhouse had Rittenhouse not shot Gage in the arm first. Gage even said it himself, and I have these screenshots from Twitter. Shout out to this chick. No clue who she was, but she went viral on it. She said, "Merry Christmas to Kyle's attorney," because that's very true. Andy, if you don't know who this is,
Need to follow.
basically, yeah, he's everything in terms of fringe journalism and what people won't cover. And then he gets called a nationalist and conservative for it. So
Because
that tells you a little bit about our media.
He literally just posts as it's happening. He's not giving a side. Like for Portland riots, if you want to know what's
This is
going
the
on in
journalist that got
Portland,
beaten up in Portland
This is who you
a
need
couple
to
months
watch.
ago. For anybody who doesn't know, he got roughed up. He says, graphic, a friend of the man who rushed at the Kenosha teen, obviously we know those names now, with a pistol and was shot in the arm, has posted an update about his status. Doctors were able to save his right arm. The friend says Gage regrets not being able to kill the teen.
First.
Hop to those.
Yeah.
Says, can't stop my boy. Nice Crocs, you fucking loser. And then we hop here. It says, so the kid shot Gage as he drew his weapon and Gage retreated with his gun in hand. I just talked to Gage.
Which
Two,
you can
his
see
only regret was
right
not killing
there.
the kid and hesitating to pull the gun before emptying the entire magnum. It's funny because, yeah, I don't know. It's crazy. That guy sprinted away to paramedics and cops, which
Put
all
your
of them
mouse
are
on that.
against.
For anyone that doesn't know what a gun looks like when it's in someone's hand, right there. That is clearly a gun. Clearly.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
for someone that uses
so
guns,
this is
I
the
mean, come
skateboard
on.
guy. This is Huber, Anthony Huber, I believe. That's him getting shot. This is him kind of freaking out, stepping back before stepping towards him, and he was going to finish him, and then he shot him too.
yeah.
And
It's not the same. It's you guys can't compare an apple to a fucking watermelon. They're so different in what's going on here. I mean, it's just you can't compare someone that's defending himself clear as day on video. The crowd is yelling, "Get him, kill him, take his gun." A 17-year-old kid who's on video doing the right thing all day up until this point. You can't do that. It's just
folks,
the media's killing me this week.
this is good content for you guys. I'm not going to talk about it, but everything's racist.
Everything.
So that's why I wrote this, because really it's not racist. All right.
I will add one more thing that I sent to Matt, and he loved it, and we didn't put it in the script. I'm going to talk about it real quick. Since the riots happened 3 days ago, they did the RNC. So as the riots have been going on, you guys have probably been either bashing Trump or loving Trump, depending on what he said at the RNC. Well, during that, they had a video, which I might be able to play a little bit of audio for.
I will be changing that.
I don't know if you guys can hear it, maybe.
We could pull it up if you want.
Lifelong Democrats that are calling, and because of the riots, because they don't feel safe in their cities, in all these cities up in the north, the same battleground states that Trump won to beat Hillary, these are lifelong Democrats calling because they don't feel safe under their Democrat leaders, and they're switching to vote for Donald Trump.
It's also from C-SPAN. So
Yeah.
I'm always talking about how C-SPAN's great in terms of cutting through the bullshit, and really they'll give you video on like congressional hearings with no commentary, which is pretty cool. That's not true. That can't be true, but it's very limited in terms of what most of the other people's are. And yeah, dude, that's pretty crazy because,
Yeah.
well, I mean, that's just highlights it's basically just highlights of the whole program, and that highlight video itself is like 9 minutes.
Yeah, so it's
I actually don't think
literally
I've even
just people
finished it
calling
yet because, but you know, I mean,
Yeah, it's a long
ADD.
video.
It's like
It's a
by
long
6-7
video.
minutes, I was like, I
There-
get the point.
There's a woman that calls in crying who literally came here from Cuba, and she said that in Cuba, people started rioting the same way for communism as they are in Portland, and she said, "I will die for my right to be an American because I became an American to escape communism, and people here are fighting to start communism." And she said, "I will die to be an American." That's an old lady saying, "Guys, it doesn't work. I will die to protect what we have." Like, it's killing me. It really is killing me. It's frustrating, but probably talk about a couple more things here. I'm not sure what Matt's pulling up here. What we got?
I was just gonna say, we can pretty quickly wrap that conversation. I don't want to miss this point though, and you know, I think we bring up a lot of points that really. Sometimes I'm a little hesitant to bring them up because I know in the cancel culture atmosphere we're in, people could chop it up and talk shit. But at some point, we don't care. We really want to have these conversations. And so what I wanted to bring up was, all right, so consecutively, when something happens where you have a George Floyd and a Jacob Blake and they do end up having a huge rap sheet, doesn't that show us even more that people shouldn't be killed by the cops over crimes? Shouldn't that like cement the point? Doesn't really matter who the fuck somebody is. They don't need to get shot 7 times in the back.
Yeah.
Is that how we govern? Are we God? Like, are we telling people who lives, who doesn't, who goes to hell, who goes to wherever, whatever? Are we saying now that, oh God, I was terrified that I thought he was going to grab a bladed weapon that I put 7 shots in him from, a foot range? He was touching him. He was pulling him out of the car.
Yeah.
So my question is, where do we go from here? How do we actually police America? Do those 2 cops need to be fitter? If you can't bring one person down, that guy better be Bo fucking Jackson. What are you doing? Why
Jackson
is a guy
95.
why is a guy who's a drug bum, who's not in shape, whooping your ass like a fucking football drill and getting around the car?
So,
Do your damn job.
I'm trying
If
to
you
remember what
can't-
your buddy's name is, but he came in.
Brendan.
talking
That
about-
guy's the most athletic person.
We
I
talked about
basically know.
training and how much training he got. That's what
That kid ran a 4.4.
It's not
We
about.
can't have 4.4 cops everywhere, but we could have 4.7s.
It's not about defunding the police. It's about defunding their militarization and putting the militarization budget into things like training, into things like psychological training, into de-escalation. Because when you say defund the police and you want to put in social workers, I saw a tweet from a policeman I know, and he literally said, there's 2 cops laughing like this, and it says, when social workers call it in for a 6'5", 300-pound ex-football player who's on drugs, but they don't want us to do anything, but he's beating the shit out of people. Well, good luck, social worker, and they're sitting in the back laughing. Because it's like, be honest now. At what point do you call in a social worker? Because you want to call it up until this point, but then that line's going to keep moving, right?
So check that out.
So they
So
draw
check
the
this
red
out.
flag,
I
and
saw
they
that,
just
and
keep
it was
going.
a really good point.
Like,
Did you see a social worker like repost that and commented on it?
I didn't see that one. I just
Okay,
saw my
I'll have to
cop
find that, and I'll bring it next time, or I'll send it to you, whatever. the social worker basically talked about what their approach would be, and that they would get the shit beat out of them to a certain extent for it to end amicably and for it to end with somebody not being shot. And I read that last night, and I was like, "Fuck."
And then what?
Okay.
You sue this city because then you got hurt on the job?
Well, I mean, that's
Then you
true,
get
but
workers'
that's what
comp.
cops do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so
That's what anybody who gets hurt on a job does.
like it's just the conversation about defunding the police. Can it happen? Yes. But we need to focus on what we're defunding and where we're putting funding. If you talk about how many major cities have made their police militarized, they drive around in fully armored vehicles.
I think that's interesting.
You look in Portland, there's armored cops everywhere. Look in Kenosha, there's armored cops everywhere. You look in Dallas, there's armored cars everywhere. If we took some of that funding for where they have to get a new armored vehicle because this latest version just came out, and you say, all right, let's go into psychological training so you can know how to talk to people. Let's go into training on how to de-escalate. That's the defunding conversation we can have. Not this bullshit of where they're saying, oh, we just need to cut the police budget altogether. Like,
Right. And so that's true. And
be
folks, y'all need to add us on Facebook because we're having conversations about this stuff, I swear, like 24/7. And I was just talking with a dude the other day. We were talking all about this. I probably don't have time to bring it up right now, but it's a post. This one that I originally... wait. These aren't even the same. These photos aren't that post, but these photos are related to this post I had with the funding of the Dallas Police Department. And essentially, it shows everything. We were talking more specifically about what you were just saying, me and a buddy, on one of those statuses. And I said, the thing about it, though, is a lot of our money already goes to training. And then I went and checked, because I remembered I wrote that thing a couple months ago.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, you dumbass. No, that's not actually true at all. It's like 4.5% of the budget. I think next year it's moving up to 4.7 or 4.9 or something like that.
It's terrible.
Well, it's completely interesting because I thought... The reason I said that to him and was wrong is because I was under the impression that didn't include the academy. Not only was I wrong about that training does include the fucking academy.
Yep.
So we need to come back to Brendan because I remember him saying some stuff about how things were in Fairfax, and I think they had a pretty good training program. And I think I was a little misled because you come here and it's less than 5% in terms of cultivating how your people should act in such a crazy time. And I also think it'd be interesting to look at that in more cities and just see what that conversation is like. Because we always come back to this point, but similarly to how different states and jurisdictions and everybody handled COVID, it's similar at the policing level on how people handle things. Not that I specifically know, but like how training happens, how like who the chiefs are, what their views are, like how like the culture they cultivate, the people in Dallas in terms of all that riot stuff and the protesting deal where they like forced everybody onto a bridge, like all that stuff. It's just interesting because there's no way that there's only two sides of the conversation.
Well, I think something that it's not even something that requires funding. We talked about this probably right after George Floyd was murdered. It was how in Flint, Michigan, instead of the police policing the protest, which was peaceful, was not a riot. We're not comparing this to Portland or Kenosha. It was a peaceful protest where everybody was walking, holding hands. The cops got in front of everyone, took their vest off, the chief put a speakerphone up to his lips and said, "We are here with you. We are a part of your community. We don't agree with what happened." It doesn't cost any funding for the police to say, hey, we want to speak to everybody. We'll do our own protest. We'll do our own rally. You guys come in and talk to us. We need to meet the people that we're policing. We need to meet our community. Where I live in Highland Village is a community policing, which means that they try their best to get out of their cars to interact with people of the community so they build relationships. So that way,
with Irving when I wrote on
it's building on trust.
Grapevine.
That's what these major cities need to do. Yes, it's difficult. You know why it's difficult in a city like New York City? All the cops that I see in New York City, they're all standing there. They're maxed out because it's a major city. They're all standing there with their M4s. They got their hand right next to the trigger. Got their other hand on the stock so they can flip it quick. But they're all standing there. You know what's happening? Everybody's coming up and taking pictures. It's just all a bunch of tourists, right? Areas like that, I agree. It's hard. But in other cities, We can be doing this across America. I understand Chicago, it's hard, but in the non-touristy areas where, like I was telling Matt, 31 kids have died this month due to gang violence in Chicago. It's so easy for the cops to get to know that community because you're going through the same streets every night. Instead of actually just staying in your car, get out. Go and talk to these people. Get the entire community. If you disagree with what the mayor says, say, fuck the mayor. I'm the police chief. This is what we're going to do. We're going to go interact. The mayor says we're going to defund the police. Go into the community, say, hey, if we're defunded, we can't come help you. When something happens and you call us, we can't come. Your son gets shot. Who are you going to call? The police and or the police and the fire department. Well, if they're defunded, what's going to happen? Your son's literally going to die right there on the street. And I can tell you from somebody that knows someone in Chicago, they don't want them to defund the police because that's what they're worried about. So it's just knowing what you want when you say defunding. We can all agree we don't need to militarize the police, but let's put money into training like Matt talked about. 4.7% for the entire city of Dallas. That's a damn joke. That is a joke.
Yeah, man. And so, like, obviously the absolute majority of it goes to field support and, like, you know, but if I understand correctly, that's just generally, obviously your labor is going to be the most expensive.
Yeah.
You know, your salary costs and that kind of overhead are going to be most of your expenses. It's just a shame that, like, the training on it's just not more on a recurring basis, like we've talked. It's just kind of like, you know, no matter how good your preliminary educational experience is, if you're not facilitating that with, like, workshops, blah, 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 blah.
We've been getting
You're not going to get very far.
Attention.
I figured we probably were, but I didn't have anything pulled up.
My bad. We got some gifts sent. We got Patrick riding a cat. We had somebody already record. Hello. My bad. I should have had this open on my iPad.
What was I? There was something I didn't want to miss, but you know what? I think I already missed it. Whatever. Last point on that being, it doesn't have to be a racial thing. Let's just not kill people over breaking laws. Granted, everything gets hairier and it's not that simple when people are trying to fight the cops and not listening and running to grab guns. And then furthermore, the media portrays that incorrectly. I mean, like, why lie? It doesn't have to be political. It has nothing to do with race. All right, so Alec has some stuff he needs to take care of, so we're going to race through this pretty quickly. You know, we clearly, if you've been paying attention to us in terms of me personally or just us as a show, we've been talking about coronavirus a lot less.
Matt loves the COVID.
In the hard stats department, just because I was doing, you know, daily coronavirus updates for, it must have been 4 months.
No.
Every day, besides maybe the 3 weekends in that time I got too drunk to do a Saturday. So that was worth it. That was fun. Yeah. So basically, the latest news with that, and you know, people will misrepresent this as they always do, but CDC's latest break, it was 2 days ago. It might have even been yesterday, dude. They made an announcement that only 6% of all the deaths that ended up happening with COVID were due to were basically had COVID as the only source.
Yeah, and they basically just kind of slid it under the rug.
Well, there were no PR statements. No media touched on it. Well, except for then the memes start hitting where people are like, why is nobody talking about this? Mm. Well, okay. Well, yeah, okay. Come on. I saw it on, like, NBC or something like that. So it obviously made its rounds because that's pretty big news. But what's interesting about it is, obviously, the left and some of the medical community and you know, sensible people too, they say just because this information came out doesn't mean that there's so vastly less of an amount of COVID deaths. True, but it also does add merit to the conversation that COVID was far less deadly than it seemed, and even in cases like, trust me, like I'm not pretending like it's not a thing. I've seen way too many pictures of people before and after, muscular people that are just faded, that were eaten away. And so, like, as is anything else, if you're hit hard by it, it's an illness. You take it seriously. But the deal for the CDC to come out and say 6% of deaths were solely due to COVID, and they were talking about, there's far more there for you guys to look at in terms of comorbidities, blah, 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 and what the reporting was. Also influenza. It's interesting. It's just kind of crazy. This whole last 6 months and how it applies to coronavirus is one of the most mind-blowing things we may ever go through.
Yeah.
I don't even. At some point, it's hard to sensibly think about blah blah blah. Everybody's talking about this is the scientific process playing out in full time. Blah blah blah. Okay, so why does everyone have to be such an asshole about it? The World Health Organization barely knows shit. CDC barely knows shit. They're just trying their best. That's kind of what everybody's doing. So
Everybody
why is
wants
everybody
answers to stuff we don't have.
It's just kind of annoying to me because it's hypocritical because I'm political as hell. But like, how are people so political in the minutia? I don't give a shit about that. I think that's the whole point of politics, right? To misdirect people.
You want to misdirect to lead them to your party.
It's absolute fucking bullshit. But whatever. Fact of the matter is, just like any new pandemic is, very serious because we don't know the implications of it. Tons of people are going to be hurt no matter what because the numbers game of 1% in America being so big, it hurts.
Yeah.
So does everything else that kills people. It's pretty crazy.
Lung cancer,
The implications of
heart
like
disease,
economically everything that
actual
happened.
cancer, breast cancer,
The last 2 weeks,
colon cancer.
the last
Go
2
down the
weeks, how far coronavirus has fallen in the conversation is ridiculous. I don't know if that's just something I've internally been doing. Maybe I've been busy the last couple of weeks, been not paying as much attention, but
Yeah, I've only talked about it because Sarah's
everything's
back in luck.
riots.
That's it.
Everything's riots, election, blah blah blah, back and forth. A little bit of Biden talk because they're keeping him out of the circle, out of the spotlight.
Yeah.
So I mean,
100%.
that's crazy to me. That's
100%.
crazy.
dude literally is
Coronavirus
just
got
gone.
substituted for all of this political unrest and basically the murder of 3 people
Yeah.
and shooting of a 4th.
Yeah.
And with that, that's the most that anybody who's gotten killed in these BLM protests has been mentioned.
Yeah.
It's fucked up. It's just crazy. It's like I don't know. It's like everybody collectively as a country is exhausted. Bless you.
I was like trying to wait, but it was coming, and I could feel it coming. I was like, oh, there it is. But yeah.
With that, let's hit the Pop Sports Minute and wrap it because I know, of course, we always go longer than we wanted to. We got to get you somewhere. With that,
I gotta go fill out emails. Fun emails for work.
all right, baby. Let's see. Wrap up with a little sports for you guys to kind of simmer down.
Marcus Morris is a chump going for Luka's ankle.
It's the third time.
Luka.
That's like the third or fourth time he's gone for him.
He's literally a chump. The Mavericks, if KP is healthy and KP doesn't get kicked out of the game, literally beat the Clippers, I think, in 4 games. I think they win 4-2. Maybe even 4-1.
As soon as that happened, I was like, oh no.
If we had KP, no
Everybody
one can
did.
convince me that the Clippers beat us if we have healthy KP.
No, I mean,
no
I think that was a series ender, of course. Yeah.
No.
I mean, and you know me, I'm not the biggest basketball fan, but I've been paying enough. I always say I'm a huge basketball fan in the playoffs because it's the shit. I always
I
talk
haven't
about
stopped watching.
most entertaining sport, like on a raw performance athleticism level.
Talk about Jamal Murray right now.
Dude.
Multiple 50-point games
Right,
to
right.
save the Nuggets versus
Well, so,
Utah.
we
Donovan
want-
Mitchell's also been going off.
Shall we talk a little bit about? I suppose when I put that down, I was thinking about the protesting stuff. We want to cover that, or do you feel like that's beaten to a pulp for them?
It's beaten to a pulp, but I know that me and you will not be able to fit that in a short time frame.
That's a good point. Well, I mean,
can talk about
everyone
it
knows
next
what we're
time.
talking about.
Yeah.
With everything with Jacob Blake, and obviously that's the narrative with that's kind of changed as whether it's right or wrong as people find out more about people's criminal past and the conversation evolves. Whatever we were willing to accept changes because someone was a shitty person. But the fact of the matter is, early on, it's another African American man that was shot by cops, and that's a problem. Everybody knows it's a huge issue, and so the NBA basically collectively, was it Thursday and Friday? Or wait, I don't even
shut
remember.
down
I don't
games.
even remember what the days were because the first day back was Saturday. So Thursday,
Yeah.
Friday, Wednesday. Maybe it started Tuesday. I don't even know.
Yeah, they shut down.
Time has
2.5 days,
been
3 days.
an endless spiral, and then since sports came back, it's been a little better. But then it spiraled away last week again.
Yeah.
Basically, everybody was unhappy. It was a big deal, and it was the thing being talked about around the nation, and also with implications to other sports. The WNBA, a bunch of other people joined as they could. With that, it kind of takes me into the second point. Shout out to Cameron Champ. He's a professional golfer, and he's one of not all that many black guys on the tour. And he's a pretty solid player. He's a young guy. He's won a time or two, and he basically wore some Breonna Taylor shoes and kind of made a statement. Not only shout out to him because he's one of God, I think he was the only person who made a public statement this weekend on the tour. And, you know, it's kind of like I saw some commentary about how it's kind of funny he's making that statement and other people are doing, like, Happy Dog Day, whatever, blah, 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 National Dog Day. But I also wanted to say, and, you know, they probably don't deserve it all that much, but shout out to the PGA Tour for how much broadcast time they gave Cam. It was kind of cool to see them not shy away from that conversation in terms of commentatorship and just strictly putting it on camera. Cameron wore like a black and a white shoe offset every day. So it was clearly noticeable. He had written in marker along the border, or whatever the bottom part of your shoe is called, Breonna Taylor stuff. Yeah. And so you could see it when he was hitting every tee shot on the side, you know, clearly black marker gets the white. So I thought that was a cool statement. Has nothing to do with what I think about the matter. I just thought it was interesting to see the PGA Tour take on that kind of branding in a NASCAR way, but, you know, not being implicated in a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah.
With that, something I was thinking about last week in terms of some of the biggest names in terms of equality, blah, 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 are within the football realm. You can't help but wonder how that's going to play out. That kind of started with everything at the college level, and it wasn't exactly political, but it did become political, as everything does, with everybody opting out of sports. I think we talked on that a little last time, because we were talking about how 6 dudes on the defense for the Patriots fucking opted out.
Yep.
That's rough for us. Also,
Cowboys.
What's going on here? Because not that many people opted out on other teams, but hey, then it trickles down. People are doing it for health. College players even did it.
Trevor Lawrence is going to the Patriots. Or I saw a report today.
No, dude, I'm biggest Cam Newton fan. Cam Newton's straight to the Hall of Fame now.
Jags are apparently getting rid of everyone to make room for Dabo Sweeney and Trevor Lawrence. They want the coach-quarterback combo in Jacksonville, which would be crazy to see Clemson just say, all right, we'll take the money. Like,
get out of here.
That's a big buyout.
Get out of here with that.
I will tell you, the Chuba Hubbard thing with Mike Gundy. I don't know if you guys have watched it yet.
I think we talked about that. But
OSU has a thing on ESPN Plus. If you have it, watch it. If you don't, you know, LimeWire it as they or 123 movie it. But it's a really good TV show talking about OSU football and how they're coming back, how they're dealing with COVID, and a little bit talks about the Chuba Hubbard Mike Gundy thing.
I know nothing of this.
I'll show it to you. I forget what the name of it is.
We'll share it going forward. Well, for anybody who doesn't know, we went to OSU. I played there for like my freshman year and redshirted, so you know, I knew a few of the guys there. I mean, shit. So I played with Mason Rudolph. He's on the Steelers. Blake Jarwin was my locker mate. I love that dude.
Go Cowboys.
Yeah, he kicks ass. He sent me a text message out of the blue when my dad had like that heart attack last year. So I was like, holy shit, that's awesome. What a great guy. And God, I know we've already talked about that, but I'm going to be way more into Dallas sports. Frankly, I've never been this excited for football ever. Since I quit football that year, you know, I've been kind of a casual fan of everything beyond playoff stuff and golf. So I'm fucking ecstatic for sports to be back, dude. Yeah. Like, not only it'll be really fun. I understand like how valuable being hyper local is for media. So I know that writing a little bit on sports here would help me out in some way. But also, I think it's just going to be a really interesting year for the Cowboys, period. They have to answer some things on defense, but the coaching and everything, Dak's going to kill it, I imagine. Seems like all systems go on the offensive side. Yeah. And you even have some good stuff going on the D.
I'm about to get that CeeDee Lamb jersey.
And then for me, Pats is going to be a weird year. Weird year. Everybody, like I always say, Boston sports media, so full of shit. Everybody was talking. They even had me in on it. Jared Stidham. He might be all right.
No.
And then he had a hip fucking injury.
No, he's trash.
A hip injury.
You know he's trash.
No, that's why. This is why.
Stidham is trash.
It's funny. I don't believe in media, and then I constantly tell myself, don't buy into the Boston sports media. And then they tell you something crazy, like there's a quarterback battle. Mr. Cam Newton's actually being battled, and you're like, you don't want to believe it. You don't want to believe it. But hey,
that is passer. Viewership.
But hey,
that's all that is.
Passer. Hey, pocket passer. And then, bam. He had a fucking hip injury last week?
No.
From what, the weekend?
He's overrated. It's not that big of a deal. The only bad problem is now you're on your third string for your backup. That's the only problem. He's not your starter. You knew he wasn't your starter.
Cam's going to the Super Bowl.
No,
bro.
oh my God.
Wait, no, but straight up, so what the new front on that is that Bill fucking loves Cam.
He can love Cam all he wants. He's not.
But he's not the
You
type of
already
person
bet
to
me
just love someone.
$50.
Oh,
you
I
bet.
still feel good about it, dude.
No, oh,
I think our
you
division
think
is
the
a wreck.
Cowboys are gonna go? You think
I
the
think you guys
Patriots
can blow
are gonna go
any year.
farther?
I think,
Oh my god! The Patriots are not gonna go
dude.
farther than the
So
Cowboys.
if
this year.
no, was that 2 months ago? Oh, because if I had to do that now,
Oh, yeah.
fuck no, dude.
Oh yeah, of course not. that was before anybody opted out.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
had just gotten Cam.
We came
like-
back and we had 6 opt-outs. I said, oh, we could still do it. That was a joke. Anything this year for me is gravy. Gravy on
okay.
top.
Ready for this? CeeDee Lamb breaks the rookie receiving yards and touchdowns for the Cowboys this year.
So
I think it's quite possible he
this
does.
year's authentically all disappointment for y'all.
Hmm?
It's only disappointment. If you
Only
got-
disappointment. Oh,
no, I'm saying,
no, straight
I'm
up.
saying
If we
you guys are
don't
going to be
go-
okay with getting to like the NFC, and anything shorter is going to be disappointment.
No, we will get to the NFC Championship game and win.
You get Cowboys louder than ever. 2020 louder
But-
than ever.
But
Do you not remember
I
everything that
don't-
happened this year?
look, Saints. Alvin Kamara hasn't shown up for practice in 3 days. He's fighting contract. Russell Wilson straight up said that the Seahawks might not even play this season because he wants to support Black Lives Matter. Pete Carroll said he will agree with whatever his player says, and that's the team captain saying we might not even play. So the two biggest
I didn't even know
the two
that.
biggest teams are having issues. The Saints can't get their best running back to come to practice, and the Seahawks might not even play. The Rams literally.
You know what
Fuck
that?
the
You
Rams.
know what
I'm
that
not worried
leaves.
about them.
You know what that leaves.
You guys got to go through the Chiefs.
You know what that leaves.
Good
You know
luck.
what that leaves. You guys are just
Good
going to
luck.
get waxed by Carson
Good-
Wentz on
Oh,
a wheelchair.
Jesus.
Say no,
If
but
we
seriously, if
genuinely,
Philly stays healthy,
if we lose to the Eagles this year, I might
buddy, it could easily
burn
happen.
my Zeke jersey, but keep my
It
seat.
could easily happen. The Carson
No.
deal's not supposed to be a big deal.
No,
He's bigger than he's ever been.
no, we're totally fine.
Well, maybe.
See, now you got me staying over if I can talk about the Cowboys.
Hey,
All
we're
you
gonna
guys
have to
need to
do-
know, if you're a Dallas fan, the Stars play tonight. We can beat the Avalanche. If we beat the Avalanche, we're going to the Western Conference Finals. Top 4 teams in NHL. Now's the time to be a Stars fan. If you haven't hopped on the bandwagon, we welcome you.
This is true.
Go Stars.
All right, folks. Thank you very much. Alec is here at least 25 minutes later than he should be. So,
Shout out work.
yeah, we bid him adieu. Thank you, folks. We'll see you soon, and we'll be back on our game more regularly. Thank you.
Go Post!